All right. Well, I'm gonna leave you in charge of it this time. You can start off the joke. I always start off talking.
You're such an absentee joker. Um, there. I was about to do like a sea shanty. I don't know how to do this.
You just start breaking out of the song. Is this where we start a musical?
There once was a ship who sailed the sea, and the name of the ship was the Belleote.
There once was a draft with so many Pokemon. Can't you see?
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
You're such a coward. And welcome back to Double Dip Draft Week 6. No. Yes,
yeah.
6. Sorry, I thought it was 7 for some reason.
No, that's next week.
That is next week. Wow, sorry. We were just doing so much math before this video. I was kind of like, oh, this is the end. This is it. Well, anyways, I'm Cabral, coach of the Hatch-Slinging Age Slashers. Joining me today,
Food, coach of the Southtown Sand Slashers. Yeah, Cabral was not kidding. We just sat here for like 30 to 40 minutes doing math about who can advance.
We'll be back to that later.
Yeah, we'll touch on that when we get there. I actually need to open up the previous week's record so I have it on deck to refer to, because this week was totally bonkers, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. We've been saying this every single week, and we sound like broken records because we are. But Pearl Division, still, all that math we were doing is because, guess what? This week, it does matter who wins and loses. So does the next week.
Yeah, Pearl is the gift that keeps on giving, is it not? The thing is, we had kind of figured that by week 6, someone somewhere would know something about who was guaranteed to advance. And yet, as we close out the penultimate week of the Pearl Division, we only have one guaranteed, and then another 5 players that are still all in very hot contention for advancing into playoffs.
Kind of what's nice about mine and your division, despite being hectic and lopsided, it's kind of nice knowing who's going on at this point into week 6.
Well,
a couple exceptions.
So Platinum and Diamond are different because there's really 1, maybe 2 people that are kind of fighting for each spot.
We have 5 people in this division.
But the thing is, in Platinum and Diamond, we know for sure 3 of the advancers.
Yeah.
In both cases. In Pearl, we only know 1. It's not Doodle, Firebolt, whatever are still guaranteed to go on. We just don't know which seed. But they could all still drop out from second place down.
No one's safe at all in Pearl Division.
No one is safe.
Speaking of Firebolt and Doodle,
Firebolt and Doodle, our first match of week 6. Firebolt, coach of the Minnesota Magikarps, and Doodle, coach of the Jobbin Wobbuffets.
Yeah.
Jobbin Wobbuffets and Minnesota Magikarps both coming into this at a 3-2, with Doodle having the edge in terms of differential. But Firebolt, I think, has kind of a history as the higher seed. Doodle has had a really explosive opening season. But Firebolt is singing a real return to form. He's really flourishing in Pearl right now.
Oh, absolutely. And their team lineup is just really fun. I think this is our second time seeing Roserade. But Crocodile just does so much, and Mega Aerodactyl is scary.
Yeah, Roserade did quite well in handling Nick's whole draft, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I actually need to check. I don't know. Is Dragapult or Mega Aerodactyl faster?
I think Dragapult's faster.
I don't know. I'm going to check on that. You talk more.
What do I talk about? Well, other than the fact that these 2 players are doing super well, I do believe that the base speed is faster, though. But this match is kind of big because with Doodle being in second to this point at 3-2 plus 11, and Firebolt being at 3-2 plus 8, it's close differential. They really want to nab this victory to get that more insured going to playoffs. And that's
Mega Aerodactyl is faster.
Really? By how much?
It's 7 base speed.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Dragapult's 143 and Mega Aerodactyl is 150.
I thought it was 140. All right. But
now,
either
obviously,
way.
Dragapult can still be Scarfed, Mega Aerodactyl can't, but then again, Mega Aerodactyl after a Dragon Dance would then still be faster than Scarfed Dragapult. So the speed control game is getting really ridiculous with these two Pokemon in play.
Kind of is, yeah. But Doodle's brought some defensive things to deal with that, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, Doodle doesn't have the best answers defensively to Mega Aerodactyl. It's one of a few Pokemon that can really threaten Mandibuzz because of that stab stone, rock coverage. It's still really tough for Mandibuzz to be able to deal with. And, you can get like Fire Fang, I believe, for a Scavalier. Dual Wing Beat is I think, entirely unresisted on this team. So
I think that is the case, yeah.
Quite freely. So Firebolt, as long as he plays his Aerodactyl safely, should, in theory, have a better time winning the speed game. And he's also got Blissey to get that momentum, that teleporting into it. Doodle also can do kind of the same thing, but a little different with Clef Teleport into Dragapult. So it's a little bit of a mirror match, kind of similar.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and take a look at this and see how things play out for these two. Starting off with Clefable and Blissey. Oh, what a fun start.
Yeah.
Setting up rocks, nice. Teleporting out of there, bring back Roserade.
Yeah, Roserade does threaten Clef quite a lot because of the Sludge Bomb, and Doodle finds out the hard way, teleporting out into Delphox to get a safe switch.
Fireball switching out the Aerodactyl, not wanting to get Psychicked or Psyshocked, and there it is.
But still really, Firebolt has been doing so good this season, but his one kind of Achilles heel, in my opinion, he's really down to just switch hard into his threats like that. And you see here, actually the Aqua Berry very well placed from Doodle, but Firebolt just taking so much damage on Rocks plus Psyshock that it couldn't switch it on Rocks again, so he kind of had to commit to trying to kill it there.
Yeah. Or South Rocks on the other side of the field. U-turn, just a great move to click on if you outspeed Crocodile.
Anything that doesn't resist, or especially things that are weak to bug, very weak to U-turn pivoting.
Yeah, a little surprised we didn't see a U-turn pivot there. Dragapult does get U-turn, and it's some really nice momentum, and Doodle's been playing a very momentum-based season.
Oh yeah, he loves his pivot moves. He just immediately understood. You actually see here, Doodle just goes for the raw knockoff, and you see that Choice Scarf is gone. But of course, it's still going to be faster than Scrafty, so Doodle instead opts to sack his very low Clefable to get in Dragapult to threaten this out.
Yeah. But Egg takes hits all day from Dragapult, not much it can do.
Yeah. So here's what's scary. Scrafty needs to stay alive to be able to threaten Blissey, because Blissey can indefinitely stall out both Mandibuzz and Dragapult.
Yep. You see a Drain Punch coming here to get back some health.
Mm-hmm. Doodle basically needs to play like the switch in perfectly every time, or at least close to it. Because any damage he takes on this thing,
Shedskin coming in real nice there. Yeah.
He can heal kind of because he's got his Drain Punch, but you'll see here it's kind of just not quite enough. He does correctly predict a non-attacking move from Crocodile this turn, but he does decide to press his luck, and unfortunately loses to the close combat. And now he's only got two special attackers, or I guess he's got a special attacker and kind of a thick wall that's not going to be doing a whole lot to Blissey.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now Firebolt, very well aware, all he needs to do is lay out some Toxic and start spamming Roost.
Yeah. I'm surprised. We do find out later the Dragapult is, does have U-turn. I'm surprised he didn't click it on Blissey, because any switch in would have been safe anyways, because none of them want to take a U-turn as it is. And it was just safer to click to get out on Blissey.
Also, I didn't mean Roost, I meant Soft Boy.
Same thing, honestly.
Irrelevant. I mean, it is literally the same move, except Roost removes Flying type. So.
Yep, and there's the U-turn, by the way, which I think earlier would have been a little handier to use, especially when Crocodile was out, because Surf does kill Crocodile, but U-turn also, I think at that range, would have likely, 27%?
It was close. I mean, it really depended. We don't have the sets in front of us. We can't run the calc.
Yeah.
Really, the game was ultimately lost as soon as Scrafty died and Blissey was still around.
Yeah, definitely the case. And it shows here, Firebolt getting a clean 4-0 against Doodle.
Yeah, and Doodle, if he had Dragon Dance on that Scrafty, he brought it up earlier, but especially after knocking the Scarf off of, Tapu Lele, having the Mega Aerodactyl dead, suddenly the speed was so much in his favor. If only he could have outsped the Lele and increased his attack, offset that Intimidate from Crocodile.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it just came down to such a razor-thin margin of error for Doodled at the end game, and he just made one wrong predict, and that's all it took for Firebolt to get that kill. And suddenly, Firebolt, holy guacamole, is it like Season 4 again? Like, he's popping off.
Definitely the case.
Or maybe it was Season 3, I forget. When
it was 3. It was when I started in Season 3, I think.
You weren't there in Season 3, you silly goose.
Was it just 4 I was there for?
No, because Season 3 was Gigantamax, and you didn't play in Gigantamax.
No, I didn't play Gigantamax, no. So I was there for 4 and on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember, but, Firebolt looking so good.
Yeah.
He's got such good wins. Beating Doodled is huge, because, again, Doodled floating right around in that area where Firebolt would be in contention necessarily for playoffs, and, having also beaten Mass, he's just Firebolt looking so good. Doodled also having, again, a very strong season, still quite high in contention. We'll get more into this later, I promise. We're probably going to breeze through the rest of these matches too, so that we have enough time to get into it, but Doodle losing to Firebolt is rough for Doodled.
Yeah, it definitely is, but we do have another match coming up here that I think we should talk about, because we've been talking about differential being a huge thing this week, and this whole season actually, for Pearl Division. And one of the important matches for White Loaf, of course the coach of the Loafville Lanturns, is his fight against GTP Woody of the Schaumburg Salamences.
GTP Woody had a resounding success last week when he managed to kill one of Firebolt's Pokemon, and he's looking to keep that momentum going forward. Again, we've talked about it before. It's kind of a cruel irony. People need to try to 6-0 Woody at this point, because so many people have done so well against him that you will fall behind. And that rings truer than anyone else for White Loaf, who, despite having a really solid record and having more wins than most players, his differential has been really quite rough.
Yeah, at a 3-2 and -3, he wants to get out of 5th place, because with everyone else, including Aurora, who is under him in differential, he has a worse differential than.
Yeah, everybody else's differential is so high, but that's also in part because most of them have played Woody already. So for White Loaf to be basically the last in line for Woody, it's like, okay, you are the one that could beef it and maybe only get the 3-0 or the 2-0, or God forbid you lose to Woody, suddenly you are basically out of playoff contention. So White Loaf needs to try to 6-0. Woody, on the other hand, is just trying to get a kill again. He got his one, so he's good for the rest of the season, presumably, but, you can't just have one. That's like Dippin' Dots or something? I forget what that's the slogan for.
I think that is actually the slogan for Dippin' Dots. But you know what, Cody? I can't just have one match, and I gotta watch this one too.
All right, let's get into it. Did White Loaf do what he needed to do?
Stropri is coming here. I think every match so far, doing really good for Nick. Often running rough skin and rocky helmet. Earthquake doing so much damage to Caparaja.
Yeah. Oh, and look at the rough skin rocky helmet. Stacks up extra damage from heavy slam. Takes 50, so it might have even been like a dirty roll there.
Yep.
Earthquake certainly not a roll. White Loaf opts to go into Marowak. Gets hit by the randomest Ancient Power I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The Calm Mind Bronze Lung with Ancient Power.
Yeah.
Very innovative tech.
Clicking on Fire Punch. Getting Toxicked. I would think he would have switch-ins to Porygon, because...
I'm sure he does. Yeah, I mean, he's just kind of getting it low so he doesn't risk getting status on another Pokemon. And there you see the close combat crit. 9 times out of 10, if Sirfetch'd comes out and immediately crits you, you can assume it's running the league.
Yep.
And especially if it gets 2 in a row.
If it gets 2 in a row, for sure. By the way, I kind of know something here. Which of Nick's, Woody's Pokemon are weak to fighting?
Well, weak to fighting would be Greedent, Caparaja, Porygon 2, and Kangaskhan.
Yep. And Knockoff kind of kills Bronzong and has killed Bronzong. And Charizard doesn't want to take any hits. So, Surfer...
Yeah, Woody has... Charizard with the Megastone has been surprisingly decent as a switch into stuff, but with rocks and no boots, it's just so tough. And nobody lets Woody get away with clean field.
Yeah, there's that half health gone.
Yeah, the Megazord X could be so much better if Woody was playing around.
Hey, look, it killed
but hey,
something.
who needs that when you can crit outrage?
Kind of crazy. Wow.
Yeah, crit did
Another
matter.
crit would actually have been insane, by the way.
Oh yeah, I mean the crit did matter there. You know, White Loaf said after the fact that he was a Scarf Blastoise, he was in range to die to a Surf. So the 6-0 would have been preserved. This move is a little more questionable in my opinion, going into Rillaboom. I don't know why you wouldn't just continue to close combat with Surfetched.
Scared of any potential priority that it doesn't get? I don't know.
And then this was another opportunity here for Woody to get another kill, because there's no way that this creature cannot kill Greedent in one shot from full. Greedent absolutely kills us with a return.
No, body press.
Can you explain to me what body press does?
Well, it actually takes your defense and uses it as an attack stat.
Well, that's peculiar. Shouldn't it then be doing more damage after a belly drum?
No, it doesn't use any of your attack.
Wait, you mean to tell me that body press uses my defense in calculating my attack and not my attack, and that includes belly drum boost?
That includes belly drum. As someone who has helped Jake, the new player, with his Ferrothorn, Iron Defense body press is a good combination. I don't see Iron Defense on Greedent.
Yeah, we don't tend to see Swords Dance body press for a reason. Yeah, unfortunate. I can understand why Woody would not have understood that is why that works. But, again, that's a damage calc thing. Like, even if you don't intuitively understand why body press works with your defense, in theory, you punch in your +6 attack and you look at the calc and you say, well, for some reason, body press is only doing like 30. I should probably click return, which is doing like 200.
Yeah, return would have absolutely killed this. I do believe that Surfetch was faster and did kill with a close combat anyways after this, but...
Of course, but it was like an opportunity for Woody to, maybe do a little better than his performance.
Would he go in 1, then 2, then 3 next week? Who's to say? That could have been very interesting.
Either way, White Loaf does end up getting the 5-0. He would have really preferred the 6-0, so that crit may have lasting consequences. But again, we'll get back to it.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. There's other things to take a look at, though, before we get into all that.
Well, let me tell you about them. We've got Aurora, coach of the Hoensbroek Hunters, versus Mass of the Minneapolis Magnezones. Another one that's very important because Mass is coming into this at 3-2. Aurora coming into this at 2-3, having a very tough opening to her season. The match versus Vincent just set the tone of just an absolutely abysmal season for Aurora compared to her normal performance.
And Aurora hasn't gotten a lot of differential out of the wins she has had. Like you look at the fight versus Jake last week, or a couple weeks ago now, sorry. Yeah. It was last week, but a couple weeks ago.
Technically, it was a week 4 match, but it was played during week 5. And
by the way, only getting a +1 though on a new player is really rough when every point in differential is making a difference for this division.
Yep, the diff is so important, and she got that 6-0 on Woody, and that's good, and that's in the bank. But as far as like her performance goes, like she's kind of in a position where she needs to win everything going forward, or she's just out. And Mass is certainly no exception. Mass also kind of pinging around, but he stayed in the green for basically this whole season, getting a couple of early wins on Doodle.
Yeah, 2 + 8.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's been there from day one, as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
Because he I think 6-0'd Lynn, or did he do that?
Yeah, I believe that was the case. He also 6-0'd Woody.
And he did do both of those.
He 5-0'd Jake. 4-0'd.
4-0'd Jake, right. So he has the 3 wins. Well, no, because he beat Doodled.
Yes.
He beat Lynn. He beat Woody.
No.
Right?
He beat Jake. He didn't beat Lynn.
He did not beat Lynn.
Because Lynn had the Alakazam, I believe, is what that match was, right?
Oh, wait, of course. Wait, he can't fight Jake and Lynn, duh.
Yeah.
So it's... Okay, sorry, I confused myself. Look, Mass has 3 wins, Aurora has 2, but Aurora, again, a savant, an absolutely incredible player, and someone who I think, even despite her current season's troubles, is very much favored to beat Mass, who, while he had a very strong start to his season, has been slipping a little bit in previous weeks.
Yeah. For sure. And with that being said, I think we should take a gander at this match so we can get into what everyone's, I'm sure, is waiting for, is the differential.
Yeah, we aren't going to have a lot of time to get into the team preview stuff, but just to know that Celesteela is always an issue.
It is always.
Landorus is also kind of annoying.
Hey, you know what else is annoying is that
What's
it called? Duraludon? That thing's annoying.
That thing is annoying. I don't think it's actually come before.
No. Oh, the Twin Towers here.
Oh, well, Mass isn't going to hit the damn Twin Towers. I mean,
No.
come on. Not with the Bamboo Rocket. That just seems in poor taste. So.
Yeah, it's very poor taste. Which, by the way, clicking Autonomize, I feel like Mass has brought Autonomize with Celesteela every week.
I don't know if he's done Autotomize necessarily every week, but Mass tends to play his Celesteela a little strange. He really likes to run Autotomize with like leftover sets and then kind of, he toes the line between playing a setup offensive sweeper and like a bulky defensive staller. And he tries to do both at the same time, and then both are worse. He's not an effective sweeper or an effective wall with the way that he runs the set.
Yeah. And I was going to say, with the burn on Serena, that actually doesn't really do anything to Vaporeon at that point.
Yeah, Vaporeon takes it quite well, and you can see, it can switch in on this. The Flare Blitz, it eats it up.
Yep.
We know by calcs that can't be banded. We know it's not Life Orb. Probably not like Expert Belt, just to assume.
Matt's still scared of Serena, though, even though, again, Power Whip, sure, would have hit Vaporeon, but that does not kill with a burn.
Yeah, but getting Celesteela in is really nice, especially if you predict the Duraludon coming in and either double or attack it, and not if you Autotomize and then immediately have to switch out again because this thing is coming in.
Yeah.
But a lot of glancing blows back and forth here, just immunities and resists, on and on and on. But finally a little bit of headway made. Aurora very smartly here breaks Sash, predicting there to be a Sash.
Yep.
Instead of just going for an immediate Flare Blitz. And it actually does get revealed relatively soon that this was indeed a Focus Sash. So, again, Aurora playing very aware, very smart. But then, I believe that was a Scarf Lando, and it was revealed Scarf Gengar. And Aurora has that information. And then she predicts with the Thunder Punch. It's not that hard to predict. That thing can't hurt you if it stays in.
Yeah, and Thunder Punch honestly hurts everything that comes in anyways, with Vaporeon and Talonflame both taking a lot of damage from a Thunder Punch.
Right. And Gengar outspeeds Scarf Infernape because it's just a smidge faster, but Scarf Starmie is a smidge faster than that. Yep,
and Gengar, I'm pretty sure, is Scarfed as well. So we had a Scarf kill a Scarf kill a Scarf.
Yep, Scarf Ladder is very funny. The speed tiers are just so important, especially when you get to a higher level of play. Yeah. Talonflame Gale Wings allows it to get some chip, but not quite enough.
I wonder if Brave Bird would have been a little bit nicer to use than Dual Wing Beat.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then this just for good measure, 10% and then 30%. So Thunderbolt Para into full Para.
Yep.
Very unlucky for Mass, but it ultimately would not have mattered. Mass could never break through Duraludon.
Yeah. And looking at this set, it's likely his same Wish Protect set he's brought like every other week.
Yeah.
Which Protect could have been nice, actually get a little bit of HP back, but even then, you can only do so much with a Scald. Maybe Burn could be nice to let that stall out, but at that point, Starmie comes in, Psychics you can't recover that much health that fast. And Muck as well, just being faster and just clicking thunder.
And like a Bandit Thunder Punch, it's gonna, there was no scenario where Vaporeon was gonna survive that ordeal.
Nope. But the win goes to Aurora, who desperately needed that, because had Aurora won this match, I believe the case is that she would likely not be in contention for playoffs. But we'll get to that. We still have one more match to go.
One more match. Why don't you introduce it and we'll get the ball rolling.
Of course. We got Jake at the San Fran Furrets, our new player, up and coming. Had that one really good match against Aurora. And we have Vincent, who has had 5 other really good matches so far.
Yep, Vincent is coming into this at 5-0 and plus 17, and it is no surprise given the strength of his draft and the consistency of his good fortune, and also just, again, his skill as a player. Let's not undersell Vincent, who is really, really good. He has been performing quite well, in part because of external factors like his draft matchup, but mostly because he's a good player and he's just doing good at the game and he's making the right reads.
And he is the only one guaranteed for playoffs, actually.
Oh yeah, he's not only guaranteed for playoffs, he's guaranteed top spot. You know,
Yep.
it's just kind of ridiculous. He's just really
Yeah.
good. He's so far ahead of the rest of this division, and unfortunately, Jake, still very new, still needs to do a lot of grasping of like these Pokemon concepts, and it's so much harder when you just get thrown in the middle of a season on a team with a rough win-loss. At this point, you know, it's difficult for Jake. I think that if you're Jake and you're coming into the match versus Vincent, who is basically just the untoppable god of the division, you just say, like, I'm here to learn, let's see what happens.
Yeah, and by the way, that shovel that Vincent has is there to bury his enemies. I should mention that. But I was going to say, actually, at this point, at a 5-0, if he does lose this and the next one, you know, he could fall out of top spot. The only way he could, but...
I guess, but I mean, the differential again is also just so wide.
He doesn't get 6-0'd on both of these matches to drop out of top spot.
It's just incredibly unlikely. So
yeah,
let's have a look, shall we?
It's in a book. Nidoqueen comes out. That's Godzilla's wife.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and she's dead.
Is dead. Actually, very cool from Vincent. This is a very offensive Moltres. You know, it's air slash, it's burn up. You know, it's coming out, it's fast, it's doing damage. It's not really trying to run a defensive interference. It's more to be immediately threatening to, like, Ferrothorn and, you know, this thing.
Definitely. Yes. And that was a Life Orb Lantern, by the way, can I just say?
Yeah, also a strange set. Obviously, Lantern supposed to be a slow, bulky pivot, does not generally run Life Orb.
Yep. Jake doing good jobs with the Ferrothorn. Take a electric move from this thing.
Yep, but Vincent's already got early momentum, getting 2 quick kills, and knowing that, you know, it's really tough for Jake to switch into this Moltres. He does get the read correct there, gets Flash Fire, and also gets a nice Dark Pulse crit. But yeah, Lantern still just click in Volt Switch, because why not, you know, where's your immunity? It died too early.
Yeah, died way too early. Close combat, also Rocky Helmet, so much fun. Clicking Air Defense, though, instead of a move, but, you know.
Again, it's a thing that's, like, it's hard to really grapple with in the moment if you're not intuitively used to it. You're like, okay, well, I'll raise my defense and I'll live the next one. But it's kind of hard to visualize what that looks like, you know, if you're new to the game.
Yeah. Trying
also,
to
Pursuit.
withdraw there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Learning the hard way what Pursuit does.
I wonder if Psychic would have killed there. I don't know.
Well, it's immune to Psychic, so...
Oh, that's right. It's Dark Poison.
Yep. No, I mean, there was really no way he was gonna... I believe it revealed Scarf, too, so...
Okay, yep.
Yeah, Pursuit was always gonna be safe, and...
Yep. The dog was
even
scarfed, and he clicked Flame Charge as well, so...
Yeah. Even if he'd clicked the correct move, I mean, the only possible win con for him in this scenario is to Dark Pulse flinch everything, and also hope that you're faster than or Moltres, which is probably not, you know, the case.
Yeah, I think Moltres has a higher... No, it doesn't have a higher base speed, because this is a Scarf Hound at max speed.
Shit, then, yeah, he could have Dark Pulse flinched everything to death. I mean, maybe.
Maybe. You never know. There's a universe which that match happened.
Yeah, I don't know. That was the win con after a certain amount of time, and it was just, you know, kind of an untenable thing. I think, to nobody's great surprise, Vincent pulls off another convincing win, putting him, again, just very snugly in the top of the division, and now really, literally has no chance of falling out.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think it's time that we talk about the elephant in the room. I'll pick that up for you. But
yeah.
I just want to see all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, the differential and the rankings currently. All right. You take the top half, I'll take the bottom half, and then we're gonna talk to you all for a bit.
Probably way too long.
About what this actually looks like and what it actually means for all this stuff.
Before we get into this, I do just want to say up front, there's a lot of theoretical math that is very hard to keep track of. If we get something wrong, we're sorry. We tried really hard to write this down in a way that it made sense and that we could recall it after. But thanks to all of you little bastards in the Pearl division making our job difficult, we may end up getting some information partially wrong as far as what you need to do to advance. So please take this with a small grain of salt, but it should still be, on the whole, mostly accurate. Because in first place, we have the Heerlen Hawluchas, coached by Vincent at a 6-0 and plus 22. In second place, we've got Firebolt of the Minnesota Magikarps at 4-2 and plus 12. With Nick of the Loafville Lanturns in third place at a 4-3 and plus 2, or excuse me, a 4-2 and plus 2.
Yep.
And in fourth place, we've got Doodled of the Jobbin Wobbuffets at a 3-3 and plus 7.
Yes, and followed closely behind Mass at a 3-3 plus 5, and Aurora at a 3-3 plus 4. And then we have the last couple of people here, of course, San Fran Furrets, Jake at a 1-5 minus 18, and Woody at a 0-6 minus 34. So I can say this with the utmost confidence. Vince is moving on, and Jake and Woody are out.
That is true. That's a mathematical certainty. There is no possible way for any of that information to change.
Yep. In fact, at this point as well, Vincent is stuck in first place. And even if Jake loses his next match and Woody wins his next match, Woody cannot surpass Jake. So they are locked into 7th and 8th place accordingly.
Yeah, so that means we can throw out that match, which is San Fran Furrets versus Schaumburg Salamences. Just pretend it isn't going to happen. It is absolutely irrelevant to anything.
Yes.
Now, that having been said, all 3 other matches for Week 7 are incredibly important for determining how the playoffs shake out. Because anyone down from spot 2 to spot 6 can be in playoffs or out of playoffs and in any spot.
No one is safe. And yes, Firebolt, that includes you. You are not safe. In second place out of 4-2 plus 12, you can still drop out of playoffs.
Yes. So what we're going to try to do in vain is explain the path to victory, the path to advancing in playoffs for each player, starting with Firebolt.
So before you do that real quick, I do want to mention it is also important, not just for that, who is fighting who next week.
Yes,
and we do have Doodled versus White Loaf, which is... I'm not going to say it. All these matches...
All 3 were big. Yeah, you can just...
So, Doodle versus White Loaf, Aurora versus Firebolt, and Vincent versus Mass.
Keep in mind that, this obviously makes sense when you think about it, but when you start to get into the math, you really have to keep track of this. Between Doodled and White Loaf, one of them will always incur a loss, and one of them will always incur a win this week. Yep. Between Aurora and Firebolt, one of them will always lose, one of them will always win.
Yep.
Vincent versus Mass, one of them will always lose, one of them will always win. There's no outcome where Aurora and Firebolt both win or both lose because they're fighting each other.
Yep.
So, that having been said, Firebolt versus Aurora. If Firebolt wins at all, he's in, he's safe, no matter what. Doesn't need to be pretty, doesn't need to have a high differential. If Firebolt beats Aurora, he is in.
Yep.
Now, if he loses, he would need to lose by a lot, and the other players that are in contention for his spot would both have to win by a lot.
Yes.
But it is very, very unlikely. So, because Vincent has been on such a tear, it is pretty much fair to assume that Vincent will beat Mass. If that happens, a lot of this theory goes out the window. But if Mass wins, that does make it possible for Firebolt to fall out.
Yes. Because at that point, Aurora will have won, and placing... That also depends, though. Just because Aurora wins, there's still the matter of differential.
Right.
And that's a whole... That's what a lot of this falls down to, with a couple exceptions here and there. The differential is so close. Yes, Firebolt's at a plus 12, Aurora's at a plus 4, but as soon as she 4-0s Firebolt, she surpasses Firebolt in that. Now, if that happens, Mass needs to pass Firebolt by that same amount of differential, I believe actually by plus 3 against Vincent, to pass up Firebolt for him to drop out.
Okay, so to clarify what that means, when he says that Aurora, needs to beat Firebolt 4-0, again, keep in mind that if Aurora beats Firebolt 4-0, that will reduce Firebolt's differential by 4, and it will raise Aurora's differential by 4.
Yes.
So they would meet at
+8.
10 or +8, excuse me.
Yep.
So they would meet at +8, but then Aurora would have, in theory, that head-to-head win over Firebolt, so then she would advance over him if it came down to them in 4th and 5th.
Yep. And Mass needs to get at least... He lost the head-to-head to Firebolt, I believe, right? Or no?
Mass did lose to Firebolt. Yes.
Okay, so then Mass would need a 4-0 against Vincent at that point to surpass Firebolt, and at that point, Firebolt is out of playoffs.
Basically, if Firebolt can do better than getting 4-0'd by Aurora, he is almost certainly advancing.
We also didn't
So,
take
like,
into account Doodled or Nick as well in that, depending what happens there too.
That's true, and there's still potential for them to squeak in over him, but as far as Aurora passing him up, he will still remain on top of Aurora if he gets 3-0'd.
Yes.
Right? If he gets 2-0'd, if he gets 1-0'd, in any of those scenarios, he remains on top of Aurora, which makes it incredibly unlikely to fall out. He would basically need Mass to then 6-0 Vincent, I think?
Yep.
Yeah, he would literally need Mass to 6-0 Vincent, which is very, very unlikely for that to happen. So as long as Firebolt keeps it close versus Aurora, even if he loses, he will be fine. And if he wins at all, he goes on. And not only does he go on, he goes on in 2nd place.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. We have Nick right after that. And for Nick to advance, he needs to just win, period, right? Same happens with Firebolt. So a 4-2 is great because going to a 5-2 really sets you away from Doodled, Mass, and Aurora, who are all at 3s right now. So that alone, Nick is safe, Nick is fine, he's in playoffs if he wins his next match against Doodled. But if he loses, it is far more likely Nick will fall out due to differential at that point because he'll be a 4-3. If he loses and Aurora beats Firebolt, White Loaf will fall out for sure. If he loses and Mass beats Vincent, he will fall out. His differential's too low. And obviously, if he just loses to Doodle taking that place, he's just...
Right.
Nick's in a rough
the
spot.
problem with Nick, Nick has that win-loss in a place where it's pretty good right now, being one of only a couple of people that are above 3 wins. Makes him very appealing, but the problem is his differential is so low that if he loses by any amount, suddenly he's always going to be below Doodled, always going to be below Firebolt.
Be below Aurora at that point if Aurora wins or if Mass wins. Like, if he loses by any means, everyone will be above him that wins. Now, however, there is one exception.
If Aurora loses to Firebolt, though, it's different because Aurora will still be underneath him. Mass loses to because he's still got the 4 wins, right?
He does.
So if your 3-win players do not advance over him, then he still advances in 4th.
Yes.
But that is predicated on Firebolt beating Aurora and Vincent beating Mass.
Yeah, so if Aurora Mass lose their matches, Nick will still go on even if he loses to Doodle. Just due to the number of win-loss ratio we have there.
Yeah.
Speaking of Doodle, we should probably talk about how he
Doodle.
wins.
So if Doodled, and this is where it gets hard, right? Because now we're down into the 3-3s.
Yeah.
Because we have 3 3-3s, and all 3 of them are in kind of a 3-way hilarious moment here. It's a lot of threeing.
A +7, a +5, and a +4, they're neck and neck.
Yeah, it's dead on. And what's funny about this is, Doodle lost to Mass, Mass lost to Aurora, Aurora lost to Doodled. So it is also a circular head-to-head. That being said, we're at the point where if you win your game, you're not guaranteed in.
Yeah.
If Doodle beats White Loaf by 5-0 or greater, then he will always advance.
Yep.
If Doodle does not, then it is technically possible, although again very unlikely, that if Mass 6-0s Vincent, Mass can take his spot even if he wins.
Yeah.
If that were to happen, basically what Doodle is waiting for, if he gets to play his match after Vincent versus Mass, as soon as he sees Mass lose a Pokemon, he can breathe a little easier because that means his win is essentially a guaranteed advance.
But then there's Aurora.
So if Aurora beats Firebolt, they're kind of jumbling everything up in there. But again, if Nick loses, which would need to happen for Firebolt to, if Nick loses to Doodled, which is what happens in this scenario, the Nick is almost certainly going to be the one that falls out. If Doodle wins and then Aurora and Mass both massively overtake him, he can still fall out.
Yeah.
But again, that is based on Mass getting a 6-0 on Vincent.
Yeah, just because of the differential, Mass has the head-to-head over Doodle at that point.
Yeah.
And it just depends what happens there. And obviously, there's a lot of caveats with the number in the differential, but as long as he doesn't tie Mass, he won't fall under Mass. Now, if he ties Aurora, that's fine, but he cannot have less differential than Aurora if Aurora was to win at that point.
Yeah. Now, conversely, Doodle losing is not a death sentence either.
We're only getting started. There's still two more players to go.
That was all the caveats for him if he beats White Loaf. That's what could still happen to have him fall out. If he loses, though, he can still advance if Aurora loses to Firebolt and Mass loses to Vincent. Now, again, Mass losing to Vincent is the more likely outcome. But Aurora versus Firebolt is really interesting because I think it could go either way. And if Firebolt manages to beat Aurora and then Doodle loses to White Loaf, Doodle can still advance.
Yeah.
But he needs to do it by a differential of greater than 4 compared to Mass. Because basically Mass, if they both lose, their differential is close enough that if Doodle gets totally wrecked and Mass keeps it really, really close, Doodle can still eke him out.
Yeah.
By differential.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. And the same, of course, applies to Aurora as well. Even if Aurora loses, Aurora can still surpass Doodle depending on the number with the differential.
Hear how Mass works.
Yeah, so Mass will lose. All right, if Mass loses.
Mass will lose. Okay, let's try that again.
Hold on. Okay, how can Mass go to playoffs? Obviously, he has to beat Vincent, but not just that. He has to beat Vincent pretty well. As we said with Doodle, he needs to at least tie Doodle in differential after beating Vincent. If Doodle 6-0s Nick, though, or if he 5-0s Nick, Mass cannot pass up Doodle at that point. I think it's actually just 6-0. It might not be a 5-0.
Well, what's funny is if Mass loses, which again we are assuming is the relatively likely outcome, given that Vincent has been undefeated a whole season, right?
Yep.
So if Mass loses, he's still not out.
No, he's still not out.
Doodle and Aurora could lose, and lose by enough of a factor that moves him up ahead of them because their differential goes too low.
Yeah.
His differential is still really competitive with them. So even if he ends up at 3 and 4, you could still have 2 other 3 and 4s around you. You just have to have the higher differential.
Yeah, and that's where it's at. Literally, these 3 players are relying on each other and the others to lose to still stay in because it's going to come down to differential. I think we might even get a tie on this final week, and I think it's going to be insane.
Yeah, it's going to end up looking like a differential game, and when I think it is a fair assumption to say the differential may tie between some of these players, it's literally going to come down to their head-to-head wins.
So here's the question then, right? Dumb theory. We've talked about this before, right? You know, you've run into some head-to-heads where the head-to-head matter for who makes the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
What if you get a 3-way tie? What if this is the season? You get that 3-way head-to-head tie. Because
that's true.
Because here's the thing. Doodle lost to Mass, but Aurora beat Mass. But Doodle beat Aurora.
Yes, it is a cycle where Doodle beat Aurora, Aurora beat Mass, Mass beat Doodle, Doodle beat Aurora, Aurora beat Mass, Mass beat Doodle. It goes in circles. So if all 3 of them wind up at the same win-loss, which in this case would be 3 and 4, and they all end up at the same differential, let's say...
-3, or +3?
Plus
say
3,
+3.
yeah. It would have to be +3 or like 2 or something.
Yeah.
Which, again, relatively unlikely. But if that were to happen, there would need to be a tiebreaker game arranged.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't actually worked out the details of what that tiebreaker looks like, because how could you?
How could you? We're barely working this out. We're still not done.
Yeah, what it actually is going to end up looking like, I think, is we will have basically each of them pretend that, like, if it were to come to that, we would add, more than likely, an additional week before playoffs, give everyone else a bye, make all 3 of them revamp their teams against each other, and all 3 of them have to play again. And if it ends in another 3-way tie or like a circular head-to-head, then it would potentially be different because the differential would be different again. If the differential's the same and all 3 of them are in a 3-way head-to-head tie, again, which is anomaly territory, we would probably just have to find a way to arbitrarily decide who goes on. I think probably it would be by CCS.
Yeah, and this is a possible resolution that could happen in these scenarios.
It is possible for this to happen. That is true.
So, by the way...
touch on Aurora. We haven't talked about how Aurora...
Just going to say, though, there is a scenario in which if Mass ties Doodled in differential and they both lose, Mass can still just be placed over Doodled, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And even if he wins, he still needs Aurora to lose to have a good shot. But it's another down to the head-to-head situation and down to the differential. Even if he wins, he's not guaranteed for playoffs. And the same
Important to remember, the order of operations for determining if someone moves on, determining where their rank is it's win-loss first, then differential, then head-to-head.
Yep.
So, like, for example, you see Doodled is above Mass right now because his differential's better.
Yep.
The head-to-head only matters if their differential and win-loss are tied.
Yep. So, how Aurora goes on, right?
Yeah.
So if Aurora loses, she needs Doodle and Mass to lose by a large factor. She needs to both tie Mass in the differential and surpass Doodles, or she will fall out. And that is really kind of niche to happen.
The thing is, Aurora, the fact that she can lose and still advance at all is insane.
Yeah. Because, again, we talked about that head-to-head, and it's not just that. Because she has to surpass that tie. Because she has lost to Doodled, but beaten Mass, she does need a better differential if Doodled, Mass, and her all lose. Better differential than Doodled, and at least a tie with Mass to move on from that point. Now, if Aurora wins, which she's still not guaranteed for playoffs, even if she wins, she needs a 4 or greater. If she gets a 4 or greater, she will surpass Firebolt on the rankings, which
it basically makes her a shoo-in.
Yes, and she needs to be in that sort of range. Now, just because she's not at the 4-0 doesn't mean she can still move on with other other differential, anything lower than that. But it depends what the other players do. Still, that's all this is a turn by. It's all theory. A game theory, you could say.
A game theory.
Yeah.
Because if Aurora wins by less than 4, she will not pass up Firebolt. But since White and Doodle are playing each other, and one of them will inevitably have to lose that battle, since again they're playing each other.
Yep.
She will always surpass whichever one of them loses. Because if White Love loses and Aurora wins, then her differential will be higher than Nick's no matter what.
Yep.
If Doodle loses and Aurora wins, then her win-loss will be higher than his no matter what. So she will always jump ahead of them, but she could be foiled by Mass beating Vincent if that happens. But if Mass loses to Vincent before Aurora plays her match, then she knows that as long as she can win, she'll be fine. And if she doesn't, she needs to do it by 4-0 and she'll still be fine. But basically, if Mass beats Vincent, if he gets the upset of the century, he ends up with a 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, whatever. Aurora got to be like, oh no, now I have to actually 4-0 Firebolt. So her differential, her magic number for Firebolt is she needs to beat Firebolt by 4. If she does that, her odds very strong that she's going to playoffs. It's entirely reliant, though, on Mass not making a big enough upset to dethrone her.
It is going to be insane when we sit down for Week 7 and talk about what's happened. Like, Week 7 for Pearl Division is absolutely insane. And the fact that we're talking like this about these matches, about these caveats, for 5 people to go to playoffs, No one is safe. Fireball could drop out. Nick could drop out. Aurora can come from 6th place to 2nd place. That is not impossible for week 7.
Yeah. It is genuinely insane. And to get into the amount of permutations that you would consider if you wanted to guess who ends up at which seed even, you couldn't. I mean, you're here for hours trying to pick apart like all of the web of interactions that would happen. Like, oh, well, what if Mass wins by this much and Doodle loses by this much and Fireball wins by this much? You know, like anyone could be anywhere in any order from 2 through 6.
Yeah. So you're all going to have to come back for next week to really see who actually gets to go on. Because here's the thing, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The other 2 divisions, we have a really good idea of who's going on. We're down to literally 1 or 2 other people for determining playoffs contention. And that's it, right? Diamond Division, we know the top 3 already, most likely. There's some caveats potentially, but for the most part, we are like 80 to 90% sure which of the top 3 move on. The same goes for Platinum Division. Again, there's some contention for a possible fallout, but not likely. Like, we're like in a very certain place, and we're down to 1 or 2 people left in that division. Not 5.
Not 5. Yeah, Pearl is a stressful division to be playing in, because now as we approach week 7, you have to play for differential. You can no longer, I mean, and you know what? You are getting rewarded for your diff and punished for your diff for the last 6 weeks. Firebolt gets a much easier ride than White Loaf, and it's because his differential is so much higher.
Yeah. You know, I think this might be a more exciting week than potentially playoffs, just depending how it goes.
I mean, there's so much on the line, man. Because you know what? If you're one of the 2 people in that 6 that doesn't make it, that's a heartbreaker. I mean, you are losing it just by the skin of your teeth.
Yep. Yeah, and as much as
I couldn't even predict who's going to go on.
I could not either. Again, Mass vs. Vincent, I think is the only one we're like, well, Mass might lose that one, but it's also like, well, you never know. We've seen some crazy upsets before in the past.
I predict. I want us to both predict.
Oh, no, you can't do that.
We'll make a game out of it, and whoever gets closer
gets a dippy.
Whoever gets closer. Whoever gets closer gets a dippy.
All right, convoluted dippy.
If I was going to guess what the top 4 in order would be for Pearl Division at the end of next week, I think it looks like Vincent, Aurora, Firebolt, Doodle.
Oh, I was gonna say that too, actually, but you know what?
Really, same order? You think so?
You know, I'm gonna mix it up.
Okay.
I'm gonna do something similar though. I think it's Vincent, Firebolt, Doodled, Aurora.
You think so?
I think so.
Man, it's
because
so
of the differential
predict.
Doodled has. If Doodled beats Nick, Aurora really needs to beat Firebolt to surpass Firebolt. Like, you're talking about like a 4-0 to 6-0 range. I think it's going to be a very close match, and I think Firebolt will keep 2nd, Doodled will bump up to 3rd, and Aurora will take 4th place. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, and I love Nick, by the way. Just for the record, I'm rooting for Nick. I hope that he clutch gods it. But just that differential is looking so hard right now to overcome when it's this close. And I think, and again, not only does Nick have to climb a mountain, so does Mass. Yeah. Because, man, Vincent, as your final week, and to have it hinge on your performance, I couldn't take it.
Even then, he could lose and still make it to playoffs.
True.
We're gonna have to save that.
I can't handle it. All right, we gotta get out of
here. We gotta
please
leave.
Make sure, as per usual, please check out the 2 companion videos to this one. You can catch Cabral and someone doing Platinum Division.
I don't even know who yet.
Diamond. God, yeah, they're exciting week 6s, but man, let's not beat around the bush. This is the big one.
This is the big one. Yeah, my fight's pretty big this week too. I feel like though.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you got to know what happened with Cabral versus Scoots. No spoilers here, though. It was important, though.
Yeah, it was important. Not as important as you, though. You take care and have a good day. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. We're done. We're not talking about math again.
Yeah, bye.